The thunder came before the rain. Ella heard it through the walls of Stanley's apartment, a low, rolling warning she was too distracted to take seriously. She was on her knees, both knees. On the cold tile of his hallway, her fingers wrapped around the hem of his trousers, her nails pressing into the fabric so hard she could feel the weave of it against her skin. "Please," she whispered. "Stanley, please don't do this." He looked down at her, the way you look at something you've already decided to throw away. She had been crying for 20 minutes, maybe longer. She had lost track. Her mascara had tracked 2 dark lines down her cheeks and her voice had gone raw, but she kept going because she didn't know what else to do. She had tried reasoning. She had tried explaining. She had tried going quiet. Nothing worked. So now she was here on the floor at his feet, offering him the last pieces of her dignity like they were gifts. "Get off me," he said. His voice wasn't angry. That was the thing that cut the deepest. He didn't sound frustrated or wounded or conflicted. He just sounded done, the way a man sounds when he's talking about something that no longer concerns him. She grabbed his leg again when he tried to step away. "I'll change," she said. "I promise. I'll do whatever you want. Just tell me what you need and I'll do it. Just don't leave me. Please don't replace me with her." He laughed. A short, cold laugh, the kind that isn't meant to be funny. It was cruelty wearing the shape of amusement. "Replace you," he said. "Ella, I already did." The words hit her chest like something physical. He bent slightly so their eyes were level. Up close, she could see the indifference in his face. No guilt, no regret, not even the mild discomfort of a man doing something he knows is wrong. Just a man who had already moved on and was mildly inconvenienced by the fact that she hadn't. "She's better than you," he said flatly. "Smarter, classier, she doesn't fall apart like this." He paused, as if choosing the next words carefully for maximum effect. "I'm tired of you, Ella. You're useless. You're worthless. I've outgrown you." Each word landed separately, like deliberate blows. Useless, worthless, outgrown. She felt her grip loosen, not because she chose to let go, but because the strength left her hands completely. He straightened up, grabbed her arm, and pulled her toward the front door. She stumbled to her feet, her legs unsteady beneath her. She tried to find her footing, but she couldn't seem to make her body cooperate. The door swung open. Outside, the rain had started, the kind of hard, indifferent rain that doesn't care what it soaks. Cold air rushed in. The landing light flickered once, and before Ella could say another word, Stanley shoved her. Not hard enough to knock her down, just hard enough to make it clear. She stumbled backward onto the wet concrete of the landing, her bare feet hitting the cold ground. She hadn't been wearing shoes. She couldn't even remember when she'd taken them off. The rain drenched her immediately, her hair, her clothes, the makeup still running down her face. She turned, one arm raised against the downpour, already reaching for the door. It slammed shut. The sound was final, a period at the end of a sentence she hadn't seen coming. For a long moment, she just stood there. The rain fell, the building lights hummed. Somewhere below, a car passed through a puddle and sent water hissing across the asphalt. The world continued being the world, completely unmoved by what had just happened to her. She looked down at her bare feet on the wet concrete. She looked at the closed door. She looked at the faint light coming through the frosted glass panel beside it, the light of his apartment, warm and ordinary, as if nothing had happened inside it. And then a thought surfaced, slow, quiet, devastating. "I lost myself long before he pushed me out that door." She stood in the rain and let that truth settle into her bones. By the time she reached her apartment, the rain had soaked through every layer of clothing she had. She was shivering, but not from cold, or not only from cold. She unlocked her door with trembling hands, stepped inside, and closed it behind her. The hallway was quiet, no one saw her, no one asked questions. The silence almost made it worse. She made it 3 steps before her legs gave out. She sat down on the floor right there in the entrance, back against the door, wet clothes and all, and she cried. Not the composed, controlled crying of a woman trying to hold herself together. The other kind. The kind that starts in your chest and moves through your whole body. the kind that makes sounds you don't recognize as your own voice. She cried until her throat burned. She cried until her head throbbed. She cried until breathing itself felt like effort. And when the tears finally slowed, not because the pain had eased, but because her body had simply run out, her mind took over. It started playing everything back, every moment, every choice, every step that had led her here, soaking wet on her apartment floor alone. She remembered the first night. The night she'd gone clubbing with him, even though something in her stomach had been quietly, firmly saying no. She had stood in front of her bedroom mirror for 20 minutes that evening, holding two different outfits, feeling like neither of them was right. She wasn't comfortable with the dress he had suggested. She wasn't comfortable with the club, the noise, the atmosphere that Stanley inhabited so naturally, but she wanted to seem fun. She wanted to be someone he couldn't stop thinking about. So when she'd said hesitantly, "I'm not sure about this place, Stan," and he'd laughed and said, "Don't be so uptight, Ella. Live a little," she had swallowed the hesitation whole. She went. She always went. She remembered the flashing lights, the bass so heavy she felt it in her chest, the way he left her sitting alone at a table for 40 minutes while he talked to a group of women near the bar, not furtively, not apologetically, but casually, as if she were furniture. She remembered telling herself she was overreacting. She remembered the way she smiled when he finally came back, making sure her face said "I'm fine" when every part of her was not fine at all. That was the night she started editing herself. Small adjustments at first, a little less honest, a little more agreeable, a little more willing to go along with things that made her uncomfortable if it meant he would stay close, stay warm, stay interested. She told herself it was compromise. She told herself it was what relationships required. She didn't call it loss. Then came the arguments. They always started the same way. She would try to express something real, something she was feeling or needing, and he would deflect. Every time. "You're too sensitive. You overthink everything. You're lucky I even put up with you." And sometimes, worse than the outright insults, came the ones dressed up as jokes. "Why are you so insecure, God? Maybe if you worked on yourself a little more. No wonder your last relationship didn't last." Each comment was small on its own, a chip, not a crack, but they accumulated, slowly, invisibly, the way water erodes stone, not dramatically, just persistently. She stopped trusting her own instincts. She stopped believing her needs were reasonable. She stopped bringing things up because it always ended with her feeling like the problem. She only noticed how much harder she was working to please him. Then came the isolation. It didn't happen in one decision. It happened in dozens of small ones. Stanley didn't like her spending time with certain friends. He didn't like her posting certain things online. He especially didn't like her faith. "You don't need all that church stuff," he told her once, with the dismissive certainty of a man who has never needed anything he couldn't see. "Just focus on us." She stopped going to church. She stopped returning certain calls. She declined invitations. She adjusted her calendar, her habits, her weekends, all to make room for a man who was always somehow busy when she needed him, but always had opinions about how she spent her time when he didn't. She built her whole life around someone who was quietly, systematically making her world smaller. She thought about Lisa. Lisa, her best friend since university. Lisa, who had sat across from her at a coffee shop 8 months ago with that expression on her face, the one that said she had something to say and had been holding it for a while. "Ella," Lisa had said, holding both her hands across the table, "this man is not leading you anywhere good." Ella had laughed it off. "Relax, Lisa, I know what I'm doing." Lisa had gone quiet in that way she did when she didn't believe you, but loved you too much to push. Now, sitting on her apartment floor with mascara-stained cheeks and swollen eyes and wet clothes and no shoes, Ella pressed her hands over her face and wept harder. She hadn't known what she was doing. She had called it love. She had called it loyalty. She had called it commitment and depth, and the kind of relationship that requires sacrifice. But it had been compromise, a word that sounds healthy until it becomes the sound of a woman steadily giving away everything she is. And the worst part, the part that made her stomach turn, was the memory of her own voice that night. The begging, the clinging, the "I'll do whatever you want." Who had she become? The rain was softer now against her window, almost gentle. She crawled from the doorway to the couch and pulled her knees to her chest and rocked slightly in the dark, the question echoing in the silence of the apartment. How did I get here? For the first time, without defense or justification, she let herself see the honest answer. Stanley didn't break her that night. He had been breaking her slowly for 2 years, and she had helped him. She had handed him the tools. The realization was brutal, but it was also, quietly, underneath the shame, the first crack of real light she had seen in a long time. Morning came grey and heavy. Ella lay on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes, blinking at the ceiling as dull light pressed through the curtains. Her eyes were swollen half shut. Her head ached. Her body felt like it had been carrying something enormous for a very long time and had only just set it down, not with relief, but with the exhausted collapse of someone who no longer had a choice. She hadn't slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the door, heard the word worthless, felt the concrete under her bare feet. She lay still for a long time. Then slowly, she reached for her phone. She scrolled to Lisa's name. The unread messages stared back at her, weeks of check-ins she had ignored, invitations she had declined, a string of "just thinking of you" texts she had answered with single-word responses or not at all. Her throat tightened with a specific kind of shame, not the dramatic shame of last night, but the quiet, dull shame of having taken someone good for granted. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Pride tried to stop her. She typed 3 words. He left me. She stared at what she had written for a long moment. Then she pressed send before she could talk herself out of it. Her heart pounded as if she'd confessed something criminal. Less than 2 minutes later, her phone rang. Ella. Just her name. Lisa's voice was steady, not shocked, the voice of someone who had been waiting for this call and had made peace with waiting as long as it took. There was silence on Ella's end. Then the tears came again, different from last night's, quieter, but just as deep. I'm coming, Lisa said softly. Don't say anything else. I'm on my way. No lecture, no I told you so, no I knew this would happen, just love making a decision. Within 30 minutes, there was a knock. When Ella opened the door, Lisa didn't gasp at the swollen eyes or the crumpled clothes or the remnants of last night still written across her face. She didn't say anything at all at first. She just stepped forward and wrapped her arms around her. And Ella broke. The way you break when someone finally makes it safe enough to fall apart. The way you break when you've been holding something so tightly for so long that the moment someone takes the weight from you, your whole body remembers how tired it is. I begged him, Ella whispered into her shoulder, voice ragged. I was on my knees and I begged him not to leave me. Lisa pulled back gently and held Ella's face in both hands. Her eyes were steady. Her voice when she spoke was quiet and firm and absolutely certain. You are not worthless. The words felt foreign, like a sentence in a language Ella had once known but forgotten. He lied to you, Lisa continued. He spoke from his own emptiness, not your value. A broken man hands out broken labels. That doesn't make them true. Ella shook her head weakly. But I stayed, I let him, I changed for him. Lisa guided her to the couch and sat facing her, both hands wrapped around Ella's. You made mistakes, she said simply. We all do, but mistakes don't erase your worth. They don't cancel your future, and they don't disqualify you from God. Ella looked up. The word God felt very far away. You know what hurts me most, Lisa said, quieter now. You were pouring everything into someone who was never capable of seeing you. You were trying so hard to be chosen by a man who didn't have it in him to choose well. And the whole time, there is a God who already chose you, before you ever did a single thing to earn it, before you ever got anything right or wrong. Ella's breathing slowed. Something in the room shifted, not dramatically, just a subtle change in the air, the way a room feels different when a window is opened and fresh air finally moves through it. Jesus doesn't humiliate you, Lisa said. He doesn't shove you into the rain and slam the door. He doesn't crush your spirit with a list of everything you're not. His love restores, it heals. It tells the truth about who you are instead of using your insecurities as weapons. Tears slid down Ella's cheeks again, but different this time. Not the chaotic, desperate tears of last night. These were honest. I feel so dirty, Ella admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Like I've just been used, and the worst part is I let it happen. Lisa squeezed her hands. There is forgiveness for that, she said. There is cleansing, there is a new beginning, but you have to stop running. You have to surrender the version of yourself that has been chasing love in all the wrong places and let God rebuild the one he had in mind. Surrender how? By giving him the pieces you've been handing to men, by letting him restore what you allowed someone else to break. There was silence in the room, not the silence of emptiness, sacred silence, the kind that asks you to be still. I don't even know how to do this, Ella said. You don't have to know how, Lisa said. You just have to be honest. Right there in that small apartment, not in a church, not at an altar, just on a worn couch with yesterday's tears still on their cheeks and morning light coming grey through the curtains, they bowed their heads and held hands. Ella's voice trembled when she began. Jesus, I don't even know how to start. I've ignored you for a long time. I walked away from you and I chose someone who wasn't choosing me. I chased something that kept hurting me and I called it love. I don't have anything to offer right now except honesty. I'm tired. I'm tired of being empty. I'm tired of being broken. I need you. If you still want me, if there's still something left to work with, I'm here. I'm finally here. Her shoulders shook. The words kept coming. I don't want to feel worthless anymore. I don't want to keep begging for love that only hurts me. I want to know who you say I am. Please tell me who I am. The room was absolutely still. The shame didn't vanish. The heartbreak didn't lift. But something shifted, quietly, genuinely, the way a fever breaks in the night, not dramatically, just less, a loosening. For the first time in years, Ella felt something she hadn't known she'd been missing. Not happiness, not the giddy, temporary feeling she used to chase, something older and quieter and more reliable than that. Basil. Not because anything was solved, not because Stanley had apologized or turned out to be different than he was, but because she had stopped running. She had stopped performing and pretending and editing and shrinking. She had simply been honest in a direction that finally made sense. Lisa whispered, "Welcome home." Ella opened her eyes. Tears dried slowly on her cheeks. The night before, she had been pushed out of a man's apartment barefoot in the rain. This morning, she had walked into something eternal. For the first time in a long time, she was not alone. Healing isn't a moment, it's a direction. Ella started going to church with Lisa the following Sunday. She almost turned back at the door. The building was too bright. The people looked too whole, or at least they gave the impression of wholeness that made her acutely aware of her own fragments. She wondered if anyone could see what she was carrying, if it was written on her somehow. No one stared. Someone smiled and handed her a bulletin. A woman near the end of the row leaned over and whispered a compliment about her earrings. The worship started. Not about performance, not about perfection or piety or having your life together, about grace, about being found. About the God who doesn't wait for you to have something worth offering before he comes running. Something in Ella's chest, something that had been braced and guarded and locked for a very long time, softened. Just slightly, just enough. She came back the next Sunday, and the one after that. She joined a small group, women who met on Thursday evenings and talked honestly about healing and boundaries and identity. Not perfectly, not with tidy testimonies, but honestly. The way women talk when they've decided that pretending is more expensive than the truth. Ella listened more than she spoke at first. She absorbed truth the way someone absorbs water after a long thirst, slowly, carefully, not quite believing it was real. She started reading her Bible at night instead of replaying old arguments in her head. She started praying in the morning, stumbling, uncertain prayers, nothing like the confident faith she watched Lisa carry, but real, hers. She deleted numbers she had no business calling. She unfollowed pages that stirred comparison and insecurity, the ones that made her feel like she was always one step behind some standard she could never meet. She stopped consuming the kind of content that made loneliness feel like failure. She replaced late-night anxiety with prayer, not because prayer felt natural yet, but because it was better. Anything was better than lying in the dark, replaying his voice. Slowly, not dramatically, not all at once, she rebuilt. Not by convincing herself she was enough, not by performance or self-improvement or becoming someone new, by believing, for the first time, that she was already loved exactly as she was, by letting that truth work its way down through the layers of noise and damage until it reached something solid. She stopped shrinking in meetings at work. She started speaking when she had ideas instead of waiting to see whether anyone else would say the same thing first. She enrolled in a certification program she had postponed for 2 years, the one Stanley had dismissed with a short laugh and a "why bother, you're not leadership material." She studied at night. She prayed before presentations. She worked with the quiet, focused energy of a woman who is no longer working to prove something to someone who isn't watching, but to honor the growth happening inside her. 3 months later, her manager called her into his office. Old anxiety tried to rise. "You're not good enough. You'll mess this up. You don't belong here." The voices were familiar. They were just weaker now, the way a fire gets smaller when you stop feeding it. She sat down, hands folded in her lap, and waited. "I've been reviewing your numbers for this quarter," he began. "Your client retention rate is the highest on the team, and the Henderson account, the one you led last month, they signed the contract this morning. It's one of the biggest deals we've closed this year." Ella blinked. "We'd like to promote you to senior project lead." For a moment she couldn't speak. The words settled into her slowly: promotion, leadership, responsibility, the very spaces she had once believed she didn't belong. "Are you serious?" she whispered. He smiled. "You earned it." Earned it, not buggered for it, not manipulated into it, not traded pieces of herself for it. Earned. When she walked out of his office, she held herself together through the lobby, through the elevator, through the parking garage. She got in her car. She sat behind the steering wheel with her hands resting gently on it, and then, quietly, in the privacy of that small space, she cried. Not tears of shame. Not the desperate, collapsing tears of a woman on a cold bathroom floor. Tears of restoration, the kind that come when you realize that God has been working in the places you thought were ruined. "Thank you," she whispered. Because this was the practical proof of what she had been learning in small ways every day, that healing wasn't just emotional. It followed you into Monday morning. It showed up in the boardroom. It walked into every space that fear and shame had been keeping her out of. The words worthless and useless no longer echoed. They had been replaced. Chosen, capable, redeemed. The dream came months later. She was standing in a wide, open field under a pale sky. The air was quiet, beautiful, even. In the distance, across the golden grass, she saw a figure she recognized. Stanley. He looked different in the dream, softer, his expression open in a way she had rarely seen it when they were together. He raised a hand in greeting, his voice carried toward her like something warm. "Come here, I miss you." Her heart turned over, the sound of her name on his lips, the memory of the good days, the early days, the version of him she had always been trying to get back, all of it surfaced at once. She took a step forward. And then she saw it. Behind him, just a few feet past where he was standing, was a pit. Dark, deep, still. The ground around him looked solid, looked fine, but one more step past where he stood, and she would fall into it. Come here, he said again, stretching out his hand. She almost reached for it. Almost. A sudden cold settled into her spirit, not fear exactly, but something more like recognition. She knew this feeling. She had been standing at the edge of this particular fall before. She woke up gasping. Her room was dark. Her heart was hammering. She sat up in bed, pressing one hand to her chest, trying to slow her breathing. And then her phone lit up. Stanley calling. She stared at the screen as it rang, once, twice, the screen glowing like a small fire in the dark of her bedroom. She answered. I'm outside your gate, he said. His voice was careful, measured, the voice of a man who had rehearsed this. I've been thinking about you, about us, what we had. I made a mistake, Ella. I want to fix it. I want us back. Silence. In that silence, two women stood in the same body. The old Ella, the one who had buggered in the rain, who had spent 2 years adjusting and shrinking and editing herself, who believed that losing him meant losing something essential, trembled. The memories came, the early days, the laughter, the tender moments that had always kept her hopping. The good version of him was the real one. And the other Ella. Steady, rooted, healed, not all the way, not perfectly, but genuinely and irreversibly. The Ella who had sat in a small group on a Thursday night and heard someone else's story and recognized herself in it. The Ella who had prayed in the morning and worked hard and wept tears of restoration in a car park. The Ella who had learned, slowly and painfully, that she was not what he said she was. I'll come outside, she said. She didn't rush. She dressed properly, slowly and deliberately, not to impress him, not to look like she had moved on or healed or was doing fine, but because she had learned that how she treated herself in private moments was a vote for who she was becoming. She stood in front of her mirror for a moment before she left the room. Not with vanity, with intention. Chosen, capable, redeemed. She walked to the gate. Stanley was leaning against his car the way he always leaned against things, casually, easily, with the relaxed confidence of a man who expected to be received well. He smiled when he saw her, the same smile that had once made her feel chosen. You look good, he said. His eyes moved over her. I miss you. We were good together, Ella. You know we were. She looked at him. Really looked at him, not through longing, not through the distortion of hope, just clearly. She saw the charm that had once felt like sunlight. She saw the easy confidence she had once mistaken for security. She saw a man who was lonely and had come back not because he had changed, but because he had run out of distractions. We weren't good together, she said. Her voice was quiet. No anger, no drama, just the calm, immovable truth. I was just trying to survive you. He laughed, the short, dismissive laugh that used to make her doubt herself. Come on, don't be dramatic. Everyone has rough patches. I've changed. Have you? She asked. He studied her face more closely now. Something shifted in his expression, a small confusion, as if he was looking at a familiar thing that was no longer behaving the way it was supposed to. You've changed, he said. Yes, she said, I have. A pause. I forgive you, she said then. The words surprised him. She could see it. I mean that. What happened between us, what you did, I've let it go. Not for you, for me. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. His expression shifted from charm to irritation. So that's it, after everything. After everything, she confirmed. You think you're better than me now? She shook her head gently, not with pity, not with contempt. No. I just know better now. The gate stood between them. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same cologne she had once thought about when he wasn't there. You're going to regret this, he said. She looked at him one last time. I already lived the regret, she said quietly. It was the 2 years before tonight. Then she turned. Not dramatically, not with a speech or a gesture or a moment designed to feel like a movie. She just turned, the way you turn when you know exactly where you're going, and she walked back toward her door. Behind her, she heard him say something else. She didn't turn around. She opened her door, she stepped inside, she closed it. No tears, no second guessing, no lying awake all night rehearsing the conversation. Just peace. She knelt beside her bed, a habit she was still learning, still growing into, and whispered a single prayer. Thank you. Because this was the real miracle. Not that he came back, but that she no longer needed him to. A word before you go. If you found yourself in Ella's story, if some part of it hit too close, felt too familiar, or made you catch your breath, this is for you. Not every open door is from God. Some doors lead back to the same pain you prayed your way out of. Just because someone returns does not mean they are restored. Test the fruit, give time, and do not let loneliness be the thing that makes the decision for you. Loneliness is temporary. Being alone is a season. Being trapped in the wrong relationship can cost you years of peace, purpose, and the version of yourself you were created to become. The ache of loneliness is real, but it is not an emergency. Healing changes your taste. When God truly heals you, what once excited you will lose its hold. That is not hardness, that is growth. That is discernment developing in you the way a muscle develops through use, through time, through choosing correctly even when it costs you. Forgiveness is not the same as re-entry. You can release someone fully and still keep the gate closed. Forgiveness is for your freedom. It does not come with a key. God restores practically, not just emotionally, not just spiritually, but in the real, tangible, Monday morning details of your life. He opens doors. He builds back confidence. He walks into boardrooms and classrooms and difficult conversations and stands beside you. His restoration follows you everywhere. Ask the hard question. If someone who hurt you comes back, ask yourself, are they truly different or just temporarily without options? And more importantly, are you healed enough to say no, even if part of you still wants to say yes? A prayer. Heavenly Father, I pray for everyone who just read this story and felt it land somewhere tender. For the woman who is still sitting on the floor, for the woman who is standing at the gate, phone in hand, trying to decide, for the woman who has been back 3 times already and is ashamed of it, for the woman who never begged out loud but has been begging quietly in her heart for years. Strengthen her, silence the voice of loneliness that makes the worst decisions sound reasonable. Break the emotional ties that were never from you. Heal the parts that still ache when the house goes quiet at night. Remind her what she is worth, not in the way the world counts worth, not in performance or beauty or achievement, but in the way you count it. Before she earned a single thing, before she got anything right, before she prayed a single prayer. Remind her that rejection is often protection, that a closed door is not always a failure, sometimes it is a mercy. Give her the courage to say, I forgive you, and I will not go back. Give her the grace to believe she was worth choosing all along. In Jesus' name, Amen. The greatest miracle isn't when they return. It's when you no longer need them to. If this story spoke to you, share it with someone who needs it today. And if you're fighting the urge to go back, comment below, I will not go back.